Within the sort of industry at large, how will each of these trends affect organizations and also the vendor community?
Well, since I gave you a rather long diatribe on the changes, I would say that the changes are affecting several things. One is the tendency to outsource. You're continuing to see a climb in outsourcing. Several years ago, I think Forrester predicted we would be at around 11.8% of all contact center traffic would be outsourced. I know we're north of 14% now and climbing at a pace that's greater than was predicted at a fairly high level. And that doesn't surprise me because change breeds expense, and organizations would rather not bear the burden of expense, and shifting from the balance sheet type expense to the income statement expense makes a great deal of sense, particularly when the technology is not sorted out. And as I've kind of indicated, right channel, right engagement, and right level of customer privacy have not been, those are unresolved questions. So consequently, outsourcing makes a lot of sense. So I think you're going to see that. Secondly, I think just by sheer expense, you're going to see, and because of the consumer frustration over the relationship they feel that they do not have with their customer organizations, with the organizations they're working with due to offshore, you're going to see a migration to IVR. So you're going to see organizations say, you know what, I can't afford to bring on any more headcount. I can't afford to bring on technology. I need to disintermediate the way that we talk to our customers. And I think that long tail, that separation between active customer engagement with live voice and the customer disengagement with automated solutions is going to become a pretty large chasm in which you're going to see those who are willing to spend more and who may ultimately make more be more focused on the live operator solution as opposed to an automated solution.
We'll come back to that in a second. What specific challenges is your organization focused on over the course of the next 18 months, and how are you sort of approaching these within your own communication with your own groups?
Our organization has changed its focus to providing a higher level of self-service through password-based access to larger data information banks, knowledge bases. So that will start in March. So we want to be in a position where we provide more information but greater transparency in terms of them, actually not transparency, but serviceability, accessibility. So we're going to have them be able to service their own. On a personal basis, we don't have a contact center per se, but we talk about contact centers a great deal. And the greatest shift in our organization is trying to move from being a trade association back to being a professional association. Trade associations are heavily focused on compliance and lobbying, and those are bread and butter issues for us, and we continue to do those. But we're also actively engaged in education and certification around the individual level. So we want to give a professional association in which you can be ATA stamped as having gone through what's necessary to be certified as a supervisor, manager, director, those kinds of things. We're moving as an organization to saying we continue to suffer from the outcomes of less than professional behavior. How do we codify and demonstrate professional behavior to decision makers and buyers?
Excellent. What parts of the social media does your organization engage with now, and what form does that engagement take?
Well, it's interesting. Social media is something that the association industry as a whole has been, I think, a little late to get to, and myself included, our association as well. We have, I believe, 21 LinkedIn groups, and those 21 LinkedIn groups are geographic and topical based. So groups of like-minded or like-interested members communicate with each other because they happen to be in a chapter together, or because they happen to be of a similar interest, technology or human resources or whatever. And they're solving each other's problems, which is delightful and wonderful, and we monitor that. And we provide insight as much as we can. We also mine social engines that are not just our own. So we will go out to social media in competitive sites, both for the for-profit organizations and not-for-profit organizations, and see what's being said and done out there. But we don't have a formal platform. There's no listing platform that we're currently engaged in that allows me to synthesize and dashboard information in some sort of a consolidated fashion that would allow me to take data and turn it into information into analysis, and analysis into decision making. I don't get to do that right now. Wish I did, but we don't have that. Okay. So that's how we use it.
How do you foresee social media affecting the relationships between companies and their customers, for example, improving organizational transparency and accountability with customers and shareholders, in your case, members?
Well, big question. I think it has, it's a two-headed dragon. Dragon 1 is a very positive dragon. It says that we will have transparency, and we will have dialogue, and we will have all the wonderful things of Disney that make it, the way that you want it to be. And that will be great. And actually, it's a three-headed dragon. The second dragon is information overload, which is most of people are suffering from. Is even though it doesn't make up 95% of the traffic that goes on. But what traffic goes on, people are so confused about because they're seeing so many different opinions. I find it to be a cacophony, which is almost impossible to decipher at times, depending on what's going on, and depending upon the nature of the blogosphere, in essence, for lack of a better term. The third is it becomes irrelevant. Much like you saw people say that Twitter has become less relevant and LinkedIn has become more relevant. It's because of the level of noise. And it's the same old adage of clutter. It's just like clutter in direct mail, clutter in phone. As you know, when I talk to companies about what's the best way to engage a new prospect, I tell them to use a fax because nobody uses a facsimile anymore. I tell them to use a FedEx package because nobody uses analog anymore. For a while, it got so crowded that nobody would use it. Now, because it's so crowded, people have forgotten how useful it was when it wasn't crowded. So my answer has been to move back to analog, and we do that with our members as well, because they're surprised to get a fax. They're pleased to receive a box. It's different than it used to be.
Excellent. Tim, thank you very much for taking your time, and appreciate it today.
My pleasure.